Learning is a huge part of people's lives, with many of us spending more than a decade in the classroom before we head out into the workforce. A lot of that time is spent reading through textbooks or watching presentations, but something might just be on the horizon to make things a little more interesting. And that thing is VR. VR has already changed gaming forever, so can it transform education too? Before we dive in, let's refresh our memories a little bit on what VR actually is. VR, or virtual reality, is defined by Southgate as a 3D computer-generated environment which can be highly imaginative or an accurate simulation of something in the real world. These environments can be anything that we can think of, from a replica of the real world to an entirely new realm. While there are plenty of places that you could use VR headsets for learning, such as in museums or in workplace training, we'll be focusing on using them in the classroom, and specifically on those head-mounted displays, the big goggles. Real-world applications for using VR in the classroom date back to around 2014, when Google launched the affordable Google Cardboard. According to The Verge, Google teamed up with educational partners around the world to release around 100 virtual field trips through its Expeditions app, all of which were available for free. Since then, there's been plenty of chatter about getting VR headsets into classrooms. In 2017, AMD and HTC, two giant technological powerhouses, teamed up to trial this VR technology within a high school. And in 2019, an Adobe article said that VR could be the natural next step for the evolution of education. So while the idea of using VR for learning has been around for a little while, what are the actual reasons for having these headsets in classrooms? Well, VR actually brings a number of benefits to the table. One of the most interesting possibilities of VR is that students could immerse themselves in environments that would be physically impossible to visit otherwise. Schiavarelli et al. Suggests that these headsets could transform the classroom into outer space, giving students the potential to visit planets like Venus and Mercury without ever leaving the comfort of Earth. This completely redefines the idea of immersive learning, since it would be almost impossible to visit these planets in a realistic, educational way without VR headsets. The closest we might have gotten to this before is by looking at photos or videos supplied by NASA. Schiavarelli et al. Also say that the ability to jump from one environment and context to another is a huge benefit afforded by VR. Where students might have traditionally gone on a handful of physical field trips in the past, VR headsets allow them to take a theoretically unlimited number of virtual field trips without any of the cost. On the same token, physical field trips usually only involve students staying within the state that they already reside in. Whereas with VR, borders are no limitation. Perhaps the most exciting benefit of VR in the classroom is that it would allow students to immerse themselves in real-life situations. This would mean that students could apply their learning in ways that feel real without actually having to go anywhere. Students could whack on a headset and, as Schiavarelli et al. Suggest, speak publicly in front of a crowded auditorium. That could help them better prepare for public speaking, or it might even help them get over their fears of being in front of a massive audience. This one is a real game changer, particularly given that students have really not had much of an opportunity to make use of these kind of scenarios within the last 18 months due to restrictions. While all of that sounds great, there are obviously some shortcomings that educators will need to consider before actually getting their hands on VR headsets and implementing them into the curriculum. First, virtual reality just won't suit every type of activity. Teachers will really need to think about whether a proposed VR experience can provide students with, as Southgate puts it, a unique and powerful way to learn. Learning about ancient Egypt through VR goggles might be the highlight of a school kid's year, but using the tech for lessons on complex maths equations probably won't have the same engaging effect. There's also the problem of how you get this technology actually into classrooms. Schools aren't generally well renowned for their ability to get their hands on technologically advanced equipment. I still vividly remember trying to save a document of all things on a 14-year-old desktop back in high school, and oh was that an experience that I will cherish forever. You can probably see how this might make bringing cutting-edge equipment into a school a little more challenging. Schools would need to have plenty of cash on hand to buy all the necessary gear, and they'd need even more funding to properly train teaching staff on how to make use of all the new tech. Even after going through the process of getting their hands on these headsets, it's still not going to get any easier for educators. Southgate is pretty quick to highlight how difficult it actually might be to set up the space required for these VR learning activities, given most classrooms are designed for rows of desks, not mountains of tracking hardware. Students are also likely to have different reactions to their virtual reality experiences. Some might love every second they spend exploring virtual worlds and learning new concepts with a headset on, while others might just hate it. There's also the very real risk that some students might experience what Southgate calls cyber sickness, which is that motion sickness-like feeling some get when they use VR headsets. It's going to be hard for students to be immersed in what they're learning if they feel sick while doing it. Looking at all of those challenges, it's really easy just to chuck the concept of using VR for learning in the too hard basket. But if it can bring a real benefit to students, then the effort required to get the ball rolling here would be well worth it. I guess the question now is, does it actually work in practice? Well, it appears to. In Australia's most populous state, New South Wales, one school using virtual reality for learning found that students showed a, quote, greater engagement in the learning module and the accompanying assessments. As an added bonus, the teachers were on board with the whole idea too. There's no doubt that integrating VR learning into the curriculum would be quite a challenge, but schools have dealt with technological challenges in the past. I mean, it wasn't so long ago that schools didn't have computers at all, and now they've got rooms full of smartboards and devices like laptops and iPads. With all of that tech really transforming the way that education works, there's no reason that VR couldn't do the exact same thing.